Welcome to the Pantheon Plus Rewind.
Hello there. Welcome to episode 55 of The Rewind. For those of you just checking us out for the first time, or those of that maybe have mysteriously forgotten what this is all about and how they got here, The Rewind is a podcast dedicated to the development and community of the upcoming MMORPG Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. Now, we cover updates, but we also dig into community discussion all around social media, that dungeon, and highlight great takes while discussing our views on pressing matters. To get the job done, I've made an exception to my disdain of elves, and I have accepted that I cannot get this done without the help of my Elven Ranger friend, Theric. So happy Sunday to you, my friend. How has life been treating you this week?
Good, man. Happy Sunday to you as well. I'm glad to be the exception to the rule for you. That's always good to hear.
For now.
Until further notice, I guess.
As long as you continue to be useful. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Oh man, pressure's on. It's a good week, man. Spring is here. Last year, I think around this time we talked about the weather changing, and I was getting on my bike and riding more and trying to get in shape. And I got the fitness bug has bitten me again. I have to get off my lazy butt and start doing something. I bought some runners, so I don't know if you saw in Discord. I put a picture of them.
I'm a little disappointed with the brand choice, but
I thought about it afterwards too. I'm like, what am I doing? I got a shoe guy. Why am I buying these Asics or whatever they are? Yeah. I think they're Asics. And I'm like, I got a shoe guy. That was really dumb. Anyway, I regretted not consulting with you first.
Yeah, well, you learn. You live, you learn. So
you live, you learn. Yeah. Well, you know what, though? I probably need to start using them before I can really speak too much regret, because they've been sitting beside the treadmill now for about 3 weeks unused. So, I'll get there. I'm just need to feel a little bit more motivation, and they need to taunt me a little bit more every time I walk in the room and I see them. So I'll get there. I need to get going though.
I keep saying that when we move, we're going to be really close to the community gym. It's literally a couple doors away. Nice. So I'm saying to myself, okay, we're going to do this. We've already agreed that we're going to get into DDP yoga again together. But then I'm I'm getting on that treadmill. I'm putting my shoes to use. I'm getting on that treadmill. I'm going to go lift over there, put myself into a different environment. So fingers crossed, let's see, June 15th ish, we move in. By the end of June, I'm hoping that I'm going to the gym on a regular. So.
Okay, well, I'm going to commit to doing that as well, and not the gym, but I'm going to definitely start running, because it's just getting to the point where it's I just feel lazy all the time, just feeling gross. So time to get going.
There you go. We'll both be buff before Pantheon comes out. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Be all sexy on stream. We could do stream shirtless. Get all those Twitch followers. And
Nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see that.
Hot tub Pantheon stream. Come on.
Hot tub Pantheon. Well, I'll put on the diving suit, and sit in the hot tub with you. Sure.
Well, we'll get one of those underwater wears that has the abs and chest drawn on the front of it.
Oh, exactly. Like a superhero costume of some sort. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm down. Yeah.
All right. So let's make sure we thank our adventuring party. Well, it's not just a party this week, because everybody who donated last week were a raid. So awesome. Yeah. Thank you to everybody. We got the big group going in here, going to take on Sleepless, or what's the other one's name? Nashara. Yeah.
Nashara, yeah.
Threw them on the image this week. Get a little fancy with the raid image. So I want to give a big shout out to Dustin Harms, the Archive Druid, Ziplox, the Darkmere Rogue, Brian Reck, the Gnome Summoner, Crow Singing, who is now an Elf Bard, Grogu, which is a human warrior. Love to see that warrior in the group. That makes me feel more comfortable about our success rate here. Now, Jason is new. He donated for the first time last week. Jason, thank you very much. But he did not tell us what race and class he wanted to be. And last time we had to guess, we actually got it right. So I took the liberty with this one, and I have dubbed Jason a Scar Direlord.
I like your choice. I messaged you in the middle of the week. I'm like, hey, did you hear from this guy? You're like, nope. Made him a Scar Direlord. I'm like,
Scar Direlord. We don't ever see Scar on our little thing here. There's not a lot of people that pick Scar, not a lot of people that pick Direlord. So there you go. Jason's filling that role. Maybe that's what he is. Wouldn't that be crazy? 2 for 2. We also got Annoying Llama, Human Monk, Redbeard, Flynn, the Darkmere, Necromancer he threw in this week, I see. So I put a little skull there for him. The Great Vendini, which, by the way, apparently he is now accepting voiceover work. So He is our elf druid friend. Stands in Fire the Darkmare cleric. Sparrow, who is now killing things more than healing things as the elf ranger. Bounty Code, the human paladin. And Kalem, who is the Archai shaman. So as always, as always, thank you all to support this show. And as Theric mentioned last week, we are working on a Patreon program that we think will be a little more fair to those wanting to support us, but also provide some fun perks. So don't be surprised if you're a frequent listener who donates to the show and Theric reaches out to you for some feedback. He's been doing that and it's going over really well. We want to create something that's impactful for everyone while helping to drive the best content we can for the community. And we've even been talking about some things I won't get into behind the scenes that might even make it a little more exciting. So fingers crossed we get this figured out in the next few weeks or so. We're not going to rush it because we think it's important that what we put in place is going to be in place for a while. We're not going to just keep adjusting it. So thank you to everybody who's given Theric feedback, and thank you to Theric who's put a lot of time into this. So good stuff, my friend.
Yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. I'm excited for it. New ideas, new stuff, lots of fun.
Cool. So with that, let's go ahead and get into the VR news and notes.
This week in Visionary Realms news and notes.
Okay, well, the dev tracker was a bit off the radar this week. Unfortunately, we didn't get a whole lot of dev stuff to talk about outside of the roundtable that launched, but we'll probably be breaking that down a little bit later and doing some fun stuff from that with some half-sized bites, things like that to get people excited. So nothing that you might have missed. I think a lot of people know that roundtable's out there, so check it out. It's pretty cool. So we're going to jump past that right now. We're going to talk about the Twitter questions that went out. And there were some good ones this week. The first one was community debate. As gamers, what are some lessons we should have learned from the past games that we haven't? Tricky question.
Yeah. Like these big picture ones. They're always fun.
Yeah. So Libwick says qualitative preservation for item stats, which is a very big way to put that. It's like a $20 steak right there. Character powers, lore story arcs, and in-game item and money inflation. Haven't seen the quality of these stay consistently excellent as MMOs age, grow, and evolve. So that's more like the devs, like what have devs not learned that they should have learned, I think is what maybe how they're interpreting the question a little bit there. I think it's a little of both for sure. We see that. And you kind of even see it in this next one from Angus, who says, gamer to devs value our time, intelligence, and care for the game. Devs to gamers, we love our games too, but treat us respectfully. And remember, this is our livelihood. And to all, it's meant to be enjoyable.
Yeah. It's really good point back and forth like that. Like
games are supposed to be enjoyable, Theric.
What? Been doing it wrong all these years.
Does Reddit know that? I don't think Reddit knows that.
There's a subreddit called Games Are Not Enjoyable.
Yeah. Maybe I'll go on the Pantheon and put, today I learned the TIL games are enjoyable and just see what happens. Like that would be, I'm sure I'd get downvoted and stuff. It'd be fun. Next up is Jorgen Wickstrom. He says, launch day is one of the most important days of your game. You only get one. And if it's a disaster, it's nearly impossible to recover. So be prepared. So he says this to the devs. I'm going to take this and say it to the players. I have played almost every major MMO launch. I have done that. I have a very, very big list. Whether I stuck with it or not, I've played almost every launch. Here's a secret. Launch day is going to suck. You're going to be stuck logging in. There's going to be issues. The server's going to come down. There's going to be hot fixes. It happens to every single MMORPG that has ever existed and continues to happen in the biggest ones every time they have an expansion. So here's what you guys need to know. It's going to be a rough day. Know it going in. Maybe don't even play that day. But if you do, deal with it. Have fun. Get into your Discord. Chat with your friends. Laugh. And make of it what you will. Because it's going to happen. I'm telling you. Just be ready.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that works better as a player lesson than a dev lesson for sure. Because they're kind of incompatible with each other, right? Like, yes, the devs need to understand that launch day is very important, but if the players don't understand that, then it's going to be, like you say, it's going to be a disaster, Well,
the thing is I don't think any of those games that had a bad launch day, which is every one, where the devs were like, whatever.
Yeah.
It's just launch day. I don't know.
Yeah, nobody took it lightly. Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, it's not like it's like,
And my whole thing is this, like if World of Warcraft hasn't happened with every single like new expansion launch, then it's going to happen every game because no one has more money and servers and experience than that team. Let's be honest.
Yeah. So. If they can't do it, nobody can, right?
Yeah. That's just how it's going to be. Yeah. Kath Clark says progression should not be fast or easy. A good game makes you feel just out of your depth. Your feet aren't quite touching the bottom, and success means taking a risk or leap of faith. So some of that can be player driven. The take a risk, leap of faith. I like that. Like you got to take a chance. You might die. Like don't always play it safe. That's fun. That's a fun player side. The rest is again, sort of dev.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think it's both. I think I kind of see it from the player perspective for almost all of it. Like, don't go in thinking that, having preconceived notions about what progress looks like, right? Let the game define what progress feels like for you and don't hold it up against another game, and this is what you think progress should feel like or what depth it should feel like, like you have to take games as they come to you, we let them come to you. Don't force yourself upon them sort of thing.
That's a good point. Great point. Miguel Diaz says, from a business perspective, it's okay to want a PvE game and marketing for a certain market of people, but even PvEers appreciate PvP content on a small scale. Not saying that it's and not having it all is a limiting factor for some people, which narrows the perspective pool of players. Well, I'm just gonna be respectful and not reply.
Yeah, we've talked about how PvP fits into a PvE game, and I think we're on the same page that you don't have to have it. It's not necessary, but I don't know. As a player, is this a lesson you've learned, over the years that a PvE game without PvP is not satisfying? I don't know. I guess that's what I'm hearing him say there, but
and I'm sure there's a big group of people that's true, and that's why I included it. It's a good point. I just disagree because I don't like PvP. So.
Yeah, no, neither do I.
Man, when we had to do it in DAOC for MMO game classes, I
know.
Dude,
Speaking of which,
every second.
How come I'm the only one that did a video on that game? Where are all the other videos?
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to Walking Waste. He says the social interactions actually matter. 99% of the newer MMOs out there right now are all solo play. They all feel empty, in my opinion. It's like developers forgot what MMORPG stands for. Massively multiplayer online role-playing game. So
it's a great point. And again, I'm going to flip it onto the players. Players forgot what it feels like to play with people, not just beside people, because we can run around beside people all day in games like, in any modern MMO. You can just you see them running around. You can look at their, their fancy costumes, and you can, watch them do dancing emotes and stuff all day. But the interactions aren't there, right?
Well, that's a great point. I'm going to actually go into that a bit more because, so I was rewatching the interview I did with Joppa. I think because I was looking for a quote or something. I think we did a bite, the half-size bite on one of the quotes he made about Bard and Necro. But one of the things I asked him, because I watched like a bit of it, kind of just to remember some of it. And I talked to him about, at the time I was playing BDO. Like I was actually really into it and playing it by myself. And I told him it's funny because, as gamers, we don't want certain things, right? But in BDO, you have a choice when you start your quests. You can pick, do you want a line to guide you right to the quest? Do you just want a quest marker or do you want nothing? And you can pick that, believe it or not. And the funny part is what I would pick is, probably the quest marker or nothing. But then because the option is there to draw the line right to it, I'm going to pick that because I don't want to be at a disadvantage, right? I don't want it. The game is telling me I don't need it. I am essentially able to toggle it off, but then I know I'm at a disadvantage. And why I'm bringing this up is that it's sort of the same thing. Massively multiplayer online role-playing games, they are massive. And as you said, all the games out there right now, for the most part, you can get into an area where there's a massive amount of people, right? The difference is that because you're given the option to solo or group, people go and they solo. So some of that does fall on the player because we're playing BDO together. We grouped up and we're slaughtering through stuff and having fun. Do you need to do that? Nope. But we did, and we're having fun doing it, right? Yeah. So it's this whole thing of like, do you want to meet people and get them to group up with you, even though maybe you don't have to? Or do you need to be forced to be social which is also kind of weird, right? Like you say you want this great social game, but you only want it if you're forced. It's kind of weird to me.
Yeah, it's so, I don't think it's so much as forced. I think it's so much as like, if there are other options, you'll take them because you don't want to. It's like the thing you're talking about, the quest, like run automatic, put a marker or nothing. If you don't use the automatic system, you're not using the game to its full effect. You're not utilizing the game, a tool the game's offering you, right? And it's the same thing when you talk about social interactions, right? So it's, I think we've just forgotten as players the advantages, the benefits that it brings.
Well, the funny part too is forming the group the way we did in BDO, we were leveling faster than if we were soloing, which is kind of crazy to think too, right? Like, so we actually did get an advantage, but the difference is that if we didn't know each other, we would have had to put effort into it.
How effort. It's the great killer of everything.
The next one here is from Bradley B, who goes from, he's also Pi Gaming. He says, a big issue for me and some friends recently is do not use daily quests as a means to handle endgame content for progressing. This is a terrible and lazy way to try and keep the game relevant and mimics a second job. WoW did it, Neverwinter, and I'm sure there's more. So people don't like dailies. Yeah. I'm not against dailies, man. Yeah. I don't know. Well, Never have been.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, no, I don't actually agree. I hate dailies.
I was going to say, you hate dailies. I knew you hated dailies.
Yeah, I hate dailies. Yeah, no, I definitely do. But I'm trying to frame this from like, what's the lesson we've learned as players from this, right? Like, we've learned that tasks and jobs are not quests. Crosinger did a really good article on Pantheon.plus about this not that long ago. What's a quest? And it's like, we've taken the epic out of the quest completely. And it's just exactly what this is talking about here, I think.
I don't know, man. Like, and maybe it's because I ran a guild and I knew everybody and had good relationships. And we had a good social aspect. Like, I would log into WoW every day. And the first hour, I'd be in Discord, BSing with people. I'd go through my dailies, get ready for the day, clean up my bank. Like, do kind of like that first hour, getting into the game, getting like warmed up. And then I'd be done and then be like, all right, guys, let's go dungeon up. I'm done with my dailies, right? So that was fun to me. I didn't, I think I've talked a lot about the term gamer jealousy, and it gets people mad, but I think it's a real thing. Like it's very real. Yeah. And I feel like the reason people hate dailies is because they get mad. They feel like they have to do them, which you don't. And then when they don't, they feel like they're missing out. So they do it begrudgingly, even though they don't want to. I enjoyed doing it. Like, there was a chance to get a legendary item during Legion and made some money doing it and could get some rare items that were cool. So I just did it. And when I didn't get something cool, it was like, whatever, like I'll try again tomorrow. It was a nice carrot for me. And like I said, it was a nice warm up to logging in for the day. Now, I will totally agree with people. Like, when you have 15 alts and they're all max level and you got to do it on all of them. Okay. That gets a little frustrating. Totally admit that. And that was me sometimes. But like, for my main character, I enjoyed logging in and getting my day set up and running through the quests that were available and having a chance to get these cool items, or even grabbing a group of guildies together and doing it together to make it even faster. Right. I don't know, I had fun with that stuff, man. It was like something poignant to do every day. When I logged in, I knew there was some kind of goal in front of me, whether I just goofed around all day or not. I had this little goal at least to complete every day.
Yeah. I mean, I just remember the lesson I learned, and in the questions asking what lessons have we learned. Guild Wars 2, before I knew, dailies were still an emerging thing, and Guild Wars 2 did dailies. They love their dailies, and I did them, and I enjoyed doing them in Guild Wars 2. But as time went on, I realized they're just trivial. Like, they were just there. I just didn't feel anything. There was no rewarding sense of doing them. I was doing them because there was nothing else to do, or because I was just looking for something more satisfying to do and never actually found it. They just keep you there for, I don't know, man. I don't know. They kind of feel empty to me. And that's the lesson I've learned from them, I think.
That's a good point. Last couple here, we have Rykoth. I like this one a lot. He says he's learned that all play styles are valid. Are you a PvE person? Cool. Let's not characterize all PvPers a certain way. PvPer? Cool. Let's not characterize all PvEers a certain way. And folks, our peers are valid. And if you don't get it, then leave that community alone and stop trying to troll them.
Totally.
I feel like I got to like clap. Like, good job. Yeah. I like that.
Totally. It's just, that's what games are, man. Games are for you to play the way you like to play. And it's easy to label things, PvPers are all jerks and PvEers are all, just people who can't compete. And that's like, it's just useless. It's not true. And it's detrimental. There's no point.
Yeah, I mean, I get like our peers, like, yeah, leave them to it. Like they're enjoying that. Sometimes I can even jump in there and have a little fun, right? And yeah, PvEers, sometimes they're the heart of the game just because they don't like the other side. And yes, PvPers suck. But I mean, yes, I get his point. Don't classify everybody like that. It's bad.
Yeah.
So the last one here is from Care Almit. They say, let me play with my friend from level 1. If I want to run over to his starting area and quest together, then let me run for 30 minutes getting into all sorts of mayhem.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good lesson to learn. Yeah. Agreed.
Any extra thoughts on that? Like something stands out to you or something?
Well, I came up with an answer for this, a bit of a lesson. For me, it's about, I've learned that good graphics don't always mean a good game. And that's, people will say, yeah, duh, like no duh, but it's like, I could list off a laundry list of games that I bought over the years where I thought, hey, this looks really cool. It must be a good game. Recently, I'm still learning this lesson. It's so hard when games look beautiful to realize that the gameplay might be really crappy, right? There's something about graphical fidelity that represents a fun game in our mind, but it's just not always the case. So if I'm thinking of a lesson I've learned over the years and what I still haven't learned, that prettiness does not mean good game.
Yeah, it's a good one.
What about you, man? What have you learned?
Yeah, for me, and as I've been playing more and more MMORPGs, I like to think that I've had a really good experience and that I have a good base of knowledge, like especially across games. Like I may not be the most knowledgeable EverQuest player. I may not be the most knowledgeable this, but I think when it comes to MMORPGs, like I've put my time in and I've played a lot and I've realized something. Any MMORPG can be fun. Any of them, if you have the right people to play with. And that more than anything about a game and an MMORPG, more than anything, is having a group of people to play with that share your interests, that share your style, and make it worth logging in. All the other stuff, as long as the game is stable and there's some progression and there's things to do, everything else can be fine as long as you have a great group of people to play with. I do truly believe that. And that's why all these MMOs still exist. That's why there's still hundreds of thousands of people playing these different MMOs that everybody says are garbage, right? It's because if you find the right group of people to play with, you can make any MMORPG enjoyable. Truly believe that.
Right. There's always like that baseline of fun. And then it's like, how far can I go above that? Right. So it's like a good game is graded. A good MMO is graded on, not on the baseline, because that's going to be there no matter what you do. And it matters on who you do it with. But then to go up that scale, then you're talking about the game itself. Right.
Yep. Exactly. So cool. Let's move on to the next question here. And it was, what motivates you to travel to new areas in an open world? So let's go ahead and start with Basgrim. He says, typically in an open world game, the areas with the best XP loot will become overpopulated, which causes it to no longer be the best place to get XP and loot. That motivates me to go look for the best kept secrets where you can still get one of those or the other without the crowds.
Yeah. And being able to say to your group or your guild and be like, I found this place nobody knows about. That's pretty cool, right?
Yep. And then like a week later, everybody's there. It's like, oh, yeah. Someone made a video on YouTube, best kept secret,
that's
100,000
right.
views. Crap.
It sounds like a Basgrim video. No slight on Basgrim. He makes great content. I'm not slagging on him. I like his stuff.
So the next one's from Ashley. Ashley, who goes at Scriptomancy, says, just the usual. What's that? Can I get to it? Can I climb this? Where does this go? That's so cool. Can I get there? I've never been here. I wonder if I can kill that mob. What's up there? If they didn't want me to climb it, they wouldn't have put up an invisible wall, right?
It's like the stream of consciousness tweet.
Love it. Love it. That's everybody. If you've never had those feelings in an MMORPG, you're playing the wrong genre for sure.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Next one here is great too. It's from Vimaldo, which is Volley Pantheon. He's changed his name like 4 times. So it's Volley Pantheon. That's what you're going to be known as from now on. I don't care what you change your name to. So he has in quotes, hey, come tank for us. Then in quotes, sure. Where are you? In quotes, insert place name. In quotes, what's that? In quotes, come to ... keep to the coast, caves just after ... And finally, in quotes, okay, on my way. He says, and so begins the epic journey of discovery and corpse runs.
He's motivated by the temptation of others to come and join them wherever they are.
Yeah, I love the whole keep to the coast thing. Like thinking about like so many EverQuest zones where you just hug the wall, stay on the wall, stay on the wall.
Totally. Wall riding was very much a thing.
And levitate, having levitate and having wall riding. Yeah, so big. Mm-hmm. Next is from TV. He says, epic quests, great character experience, and the promise of fantastic loot. I thought it was cool that they had Stormfeather out on the edge of ice-clad ocean. Didn't stop me from pursuing him. The Tower of Frozen Shadow would stick out every time you went through the Eastern Wastes. So just seeing cool stuff. It's awesome.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Nocturnal Demise says the aesthetic foremost, lore secondary, then tertiary. Oh, I can't. I thought I was going to get it. I was going to get it.
I'm looking at the tweet, and that's not a word, I don't think. So don't feel bad about not like tertiary is a word, but tertiarily, I could be wrong. I don't think that's a word, personally.
All right, Nocturnal Demise, I apologize. I cannot pronounce words that are real and big, let alone fake words that are big. So anyway, he says loots and quests would be after that. And he says, I often find myself wandering into high-level areas accidentally because of this. So like that. That's good.
Yeah.
Other than the tertiarily. Antimony says, I enjoy literally just exploring, taking screenshots, new areas. I also systematically scour every inch of a zone for hidden quests, enemies, lores, nooks and crannies, etc.
Nice. Me too.
Good there. A new follower of Pantheon. He goes by @PantheonDrac. This is a new Twitter account. If you haven't had the chance to follow this new individual, please follow his new Twitter account @PantheonDrac. Apparently he says, if my current favorite spot is overcrowded or if I outlevel my current favorite spot, then I'll travel to a new area. I'm like the opposite of an explorer. I prefer to stick with what I already know. I like that comfort.
He's like the guy who stayed in one spot for like 30 levels, just farming the same mob over and over and over again.
Hey, I've done it. I was in Kara Island. I told that story 1,000 times. I killed the hermit 1,000,000 times. There was a bard in the Freeport bar that could only walk around the carpet, and she was super high level. And I would just literally like jump to one side of the carpet, hit her with a spell, jump to the other side of the carpet, hit her with a spell, and she'd keep getting stuck in the pathing. And I killed her for like a lot of levels, lots.
I think I would die.
A couple more here. Glenn Smith says, there's nothing better than the unknown. Traveling to a new zone, unsure of what's in there, how dangerous it is, etc. Moving very slowly, being cautious, but yet eager to find new loot and experience new things. And then finally, Cotter Stomhold says, fat loots. Derek, what makes you adventure?
Well, this is a good question too, and I like this one. I'm still playing Phoenix Immortals Rising on the Switch, which is a completely open world game. So I kind of used that as my template for how I wanted to answer this question. And for me, it's about taking the path less traveled. And what I mean by that is not necessarily what some of the people on Twitter said, like discovering new areas. I'm talking about like, you know, when they're designing a game and they've got zones, and Joppa's talked about like the player flow, right? Like how they sort of are thinking players will go from one zone to which one they'll go to next, and sort of how that goes. I'm the guy who likes to throw a fork into that. I like to go where they don't want me to go. So Immortals does this with their main story quest. And when I see the option, like I see where they want me to go for the next part of the story, I'm like, nope, I'm going to go somewhere else. I like to sort of like, I like to see what happens if I go to these other places. Like, do I progress in a way that the developers didn't intend? I get satisfaction out of kind of doing that, right? So, and that's what makes me love open world games, because they respect the choice that I can make. I can make that choice, right? I'm motivated by like the uncommon experiences, I guess the way you could say it. I want the freedom to sort of do things out of order. And even if it means I get punished, if it means that something is hindered or I don't get some sort of optimal gameplay experience, that's okay, because it's like the freedom is what motivates me. So yeah, that's what I was thinking.
It reminds me of like every single Elder Scrolls game I've ever played. I'll do like a couple of the main story missions and then I'm off on my own and I never do it again.
Yeah,
like,
that's so true. That's so true.
Yeah, like in what was it? Skyrim. That was the one where, with the dragons and stuff. So in Skyrim, I was a wizard in my first playthrough, which is very different for me. And as soon as I could go do wizard, like quests and wizard like storyline. I just totally jumped off the main story and eventually like literally didn't get far. I didn't even get the scream yet, like the shout ability.
Yep.
And I was off doing my own thing already. And I became master of the mage guild or wizard guild or whatever it was. Started making my own spells. You know, you can like make your own spells and and by that point I made everything so easy to kill that the whole game was no longer fun. Like I had this fireball that every time I hit it, it would like stun it for a couple seconds and I could get another fireball off before it would be unstunned. And like at least the low level dragons or the dragons at that point in the game, they couldn't move. Like I literally could just hit them with fireballs until they died because they couldn't get out of my stun lock. And I did that by making that spell. And I'm like, well, broke this game.
But the question then is, of course, is then would you have had more fun if you had stuck to the main story and been challenged the whole way through? Or did you have more fun doing what you wanted to do, right? Like
until
yes,
I got
it broke the game a little bit, but
until I got to where I wanted to be, it was super fun. And then once I did what I wanted and became unstoppable, it was not fun anymore. And the funny part is
like challenge yourself at that point and like strip off all your like armor and spells and like,
and again,
you know,
I could do that. I could do that, but why would I? I'm super powerful, right? Make dragons bow to me. Yeah. And then the other part of it is like, so did you ever play Jade Empire?
No.
So I think that's on Game Pass, if I'm not mistaken, like that they're re-releasing it on PC. You have to look for that. You might enjoy it. Okay. It is, I think it's BioWare.
It's a BioWare game. I think I know what you're talking about. It is a BioWare game.
So good. And like the way you fight, you learn different martial arts styles and they do different things and you can combo two of them together. And I found a combo that made everything paralyzed no matter what. And again, just the easiest game ever, just destroy my way through. And I didn't look it up or anything. I just figured it out. And I'm like, oh, well, nothing can hit me anymore. So I basically made combat the rest of the time completely irrelevant.
Yeah. So you're kind of afraid, like if you do what I'm talking about, you're afraid that that's going to happen every time.
Yeah. I mean, even in Fallout, I went off on my own and I figured out that I could get infinite bottle caps by like selling items over and over.
Yeah, I did that too.
And then I bought like 7,000 batteries everywhere I went. I'd buy all the batteries and I just had the best power armor and just crushed everything with melee.
There was a, in Fallout 2, the older ones, there was like a thing you could do with shotguns. There was like a shotgun economy that you could create where you could just purchase 1 million shotguns and sell them at a profit. Like you were basically bartering in shotguns for anything you wanted. It was the best thing ever. I mean, it got ridiculous, but I know what you're saying. So, I mean, to credit Phoenix Immortals Rising, I haven't found that doing what I've done so far has broken the game in any way. It's still super challenging and it's actually it's a great game. I have to
talk about getting off topic here, right? But I love it.
I know, right?
Because honestly, my answer to this question is just loot. So
yeah, loot's plain and simple.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Cotter Stormhold here. Loot, and more loot. That's going to make me go anywhere. Hey, Minus, this place here is full of elves and you die instantly if you bump this and you have to climb all this stuff and there's lava everywhere and everybody loses their corpses here, but there's a really good dagger. Okay, let's go. You said good dagger? Let's go. Yeah, loot.
Done.
All right, and that's it for VR news and notes.
When the Pantheon community speaks, we listen. So let's dig into the forums and fan projects to see what the discussion's all about. Okay, so for community discussion this week, I think it's safe to say, it's funny how these discussions actually get started. Minus a few episodes ago, you and I talked about the Ranger skill Silent Arrow and that the unusual, unique manual aiming mechanic that it has. And, in a tab target game like Pantheon, it feels out of place, and you had some other reservations about it. And Joppa actually talked about that later on. We did a dev note about it, how Silent Arrow isn't the only skill in Pantheon that uses a manual aiming mechanic, which is kind of interesting. It's still a tab target game, don't get me wrong. But I got to thinking more about this, and I'm like, this is interesting. So, look at the current state of MMOs, look at the current MMOs out there. And then I was on Reddit and I saw the MMORPG subreddit, and user Netlot actually asked the question. He said, why are tab targeting RPGs, and in this case, MMORPGs, disappearing? Because that's what the conversation was about, MMOs. And we definitely see that, right? We see lots of free aiming, free action style MMOs in the current generation. Like you look at the top current 5 MMOs that are regularly referenced in WoW and Final Fantasy XIV, Elder Scrolls Online, Guild Wars 2, and BDO. Really only WoW is the really traditional tab target style game.
Final Fantasy XIV's tab.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of a hybrid. I don't have a ton of experience, but my understanding was kind of a hybrid.
No, WoW and Final Fantasy XIV are very
Okay, yeah, fair
tab
enough.
target.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, that's a good clarification because I wasn't exactly sure about that. So it's an interesting discussion, and I was curious as to why that is too. So here's what some of the people on Reddit had to say. And first up is Lysync, and they said action combat is faster paced and more engaging than tab target combat. So a lot of people are starting to prefer action. Personally, they like tab target because they can kind of zone out and multitask easier. Next person said, my biggest issue with tab target is how it influences gear design. I hate how tab targeting means range attacks are unavoidable and require you to get more armor or resist gear. I'd rather rely on reaction in a game that lets me avoid attacks completely. So they're sort of saying, you know, like I tried to find different responses here that kind of like highlight different reasons as to why tab targeting might be out. And gear is an interesting one. I'd never thought of that before, but it's certainly interesting. Next up was The Rocks, and they said nothing feels like it has weight in a tab-based game or tab-based combat. He said, I just stand there. I maybe dodge a red circle while doing the same rotation again and again and again with zero reason to change.
I disagree with that. I think that animation, combat sounds, that kind of thing, the reaction of hitting your ability is what makes tab like feel more weighty. And I think, you know, no one wants to hear this, but WoW does it the best. Like with WoW, I feel like I'm very responsive and in charge of my combat and moving and I'm hitting stuff. Like I disagree that it doesn't feel like it has weight. Now there are definitely ones out there that don't. But I think that if it does well with the animations and stuff, I would disagree with that.
Yeah, I can see why you're saying that because I think there's like a few different pieces of that, like weighty reactions, weighty combat. I mean, think of Dark Age of Camelot, right? And I was hitting with my bow, my forever bow, they felt weighty. But it's also like very much not, it's the exactly opposite of an action game. There is no action,
I never felt like when I hit something, I was actually hitting it though. Like I just,
that's interesting. So for the rogue, the tab targeting didn't have that effect for you.
No, it was rough. It was a rough game. That's why I didn't make a video. Good.
Yeah, coming back to that again, I'm the only one that made a video. Anyway, the next one was Godi Fiorenza, and they said, because tab targeting is a relic of the past. It was designed only due to technical limitations. I know. I'm going to talk about this too in a bit. Just finish what they said. They said, I get some of the people may prefer less intense combat, but no one is in good faith that has played games like Dragon Nest, Terra, or Vindictus, or any other tab target game will say that they have worse combat than the latter. So
Terra's combat is completely weightless. It's fun. But when you're fighting like big bosses, it's the most weightless. I'm just hitting these abilities and maybe it's hitting it. I don't know, but I'm doing damage. Completely disagree. WoW's combat is so much weightier than Terra that it's crazy. All right, good.
No, that's interesting. I never played Terra. It was one of the few games I haven't played.
It was good. It was all right.
Yeah. Like if there was a good tab target game, like I feel like, I don't know, those games that they're citing, I feel like it's like, just because the action is so fast and furious and it's just necessarily, they think it's necessarily better, but it's like you can have good tab target combat. It's just that it's not evolved.
Just because action combat looks intensive doesn't mean it is. And BDO is a perfect example. Like BDO, you can get crazy with like the combos and stuff, and that can be semi-intensive, but at the same time, 90% of the time it's not. Yeah, whatever abilities you're doing, you're going to kill the enemies and kill them all, right? Like in later game, the harder fights, sure. In PvP, maybe sure. But a majority of the time you're playing action combat games, it's not that intensive. It really isn't.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think you're right about that because the intensity is coming from the visual aspect. It's not coming from the way that
the play. It's not
the way
play.
that you're interacting with it, right?
Yeah. Like Guild Wars was awful. Guild Wars 2, ugh. I don't know.
Well, see, so Guild Wars 2 is because Guild Wars 2 is kind of a hybrid. You can do tab targeting, or you can just do manual sort of aiming, techniques with that, and it kind of doesn't know what it is. It's a hybrid that I don't think does either thing well. You know what I mean? Like if it was a pure tab target game, it might work better. I don't know. It's hard to say, but I don't hate it. I feel like it's a missed opportunity for sure. The next person, NVM Void Rays, said, for MMOs, I prefer tab targeting because I'm a healing support main, and action combat MMOs tend to pretty much phase out these classes almost entirely.
So true.
Yeah,
so true.
Totally. Great point. I hadn't thought of it until I read this, and I was like, wow, that's goes into why the games are designed so that tab targeting isn't relevant, right? Like, there's no healing classes in a lot of the modern MMOs, and healers don't really function from a point at something and heal it kind of way, right? They're very much more like select your target.
Yeah, there's no healers in Guild Wars, right? There's no healers in Guild Wars. There's no healers in BDO.
That's right,
it's crazy. Yep.
Yeah, the next one is from Aotis, and they said, for me, it's not tab targeting disappearing, but the RPG in MMORPG. They said RPGs tend to be hardcore games with very specific mechanics where an entire building and calculations aspect and tab targeting was just the obvious choice because it's a precise tool. But as time has gone on, we've shifted to action MMOs. It's become obsolete with some other things, like we were just saying about healing. They just finish up by saying stats, gearing, theorycraft builds. It's not what it used to be, even if there is still min-maxing. So looking at it from a little bit more of a crafted standpoint, crafting your character, crafting your playstyle. This next one's long. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but Dark Azertoth just talked about tab targeting being incredibly complex, and it's difficult for new players to the MMO genre. It's also early on, it's not very interesting, and because you have to sort of introduce people to it slowly, whereas like action combat allows people to basically just jump in and sort of start doing stuff. You know what I mean? Like this is what he's saying. I'm just sort of paraphrasing this long post, but the long and the short of it is saying, tab targeting gameplay is made fun by the options you have as choices, whereas action games are just fun by default sort of thing. So
it's a good point. It's a great point, actually.
Yeah, I feel like BDO is a great example of that because it's exactly what it is. You jump in and you're already like, you've got 4 different combos, and your keys that you can do, and instead of like 1 or 2 skills that you just started working on.
Yep.
Last couple ones here. False Adhesiveness said it's a damn shame because action combat doesn't allow for the same methodical gameplay as tab targeting does. WoW has the best combat out there, in my opinion, not because it's most fun, flashy, or engaging, or the most complex, but because it works in all settings.
Yep. Preach. Yeah. Love that.
Yeah. Good point.
He said this on a Pantheon Reddit?
This is on the MMORPG subreddit.
Oh, MMORPG. Okay, he's fine then.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to get kicked off the Pantheon Reddit there for a second. I felt bad. I was going to have to come to his defense or something.
Yeah, stay away. So Olgir said, personally, tab targeting is boring, slow paced, and I find it less skill intensive. Like major tab target ended up being exploited by macros and such, and not only to mention bots. So he's looking at it from a little bit of perspective of too easy to exploit. And then the last point was from Serene, and they said it's just the usual answer. It's rooted in reaching for audience growth. So he's saying that action games have a bigger potential audience. So Minus, what do you think about this? I've talked a lot here. Let me hear what you have to say about this one.
I've played both. The games that I've enjoyed most in my life in this genre are going to be, WoW, EverQuest, and Final Fantasy 14 probably as my top 3, and they're all tab target. So I enjoy tab target more. I think there's more technique to tab target. I think that having a full action bar, because the other thing you notice about action RPGs is you usually have more limited action. Like you have more limited abilities in an action RPG for the most part. So there's not as many mistakes that you can make that are super critical. Now I'm sure someone's gonna be like, endgame BDO, PvP, if you miss this, okay, I get it. But to play the basic game, it's not as punishing to me when you have an action MMORPG, especially if you could just avoid everything. Like someone was talking about how they wanted to actually avoid physical attacks and stuff like that because you don't have a healer. So the whole job is to not take damage. In a tab target game, you're taking damage. Like that's what's going to happen. And you have to have someone there to stop that bleeding. You have to have someone there to protect you. And there's times where there's enemies that are going to get a big shot off on you, whether you like it or not. And, sometimes that doesn't happen in the other games. So I think that tab targeting from all aspects is more intricate. I think that it's easier to design just a wild swinging game because every single action game for PlayStation that's ever existed or Xbox or Nintendo has always been action. So saying that all of a sudden this is new and it's so intuitive and it's so much more challenging, that's complete crap, because every game that we've ever played that's an action game has always been like that. This isn't new at all. If you played Zelda, you had action combat, like any of them. So that's kind of silly to me in a sense, because really tab targeting's sort of only been an RPG thing. Like whether it's the old turn-based RPGs or the time-based RPGs, what they call CRPGs now, but also then you have MMOs. So I completely disagree. I think it adds a level of strategic combat that can be more challenging for the developers to make, like the boss fights that you fight, but also can create more punishing circumstances for you as a player, with targeting being so important and sometimes difficult. No, I completely disagree. And to think in this whole saying of it being so innovative is, to me, is funny. Like, so BDO came out and it's like, oh, it has this innovative combo system. Dynasty Warriors has been out since PlayStation 2.
Yeah. And Same Street Fighter has been out since Super Nintendo, right?
It's arcades. Like I get it, guys. Like maybe in an MMORPG in an open world, it wasn't there as much, but let's be a little, think a little bit. Action games have been out for longer than MMORPGs. So it's just taking that same system that wasn't hard to develop. I think it's probably harder to make an intensive tab targeting system, in my sense, that works well. So
I agree. Yeah, I agree with you. And it's a really interesting question. It's like, so why are they disappearing? Why is the landscape changed so much? Because they're easier to make, like you say. I thought about this one of the responses mentioned technical limitations, right? You sort of piped up there and I said, yeah, I was kind of persuaded by that in the beginning, but then I thought about it more, because it's tempting to think that, like, well, we can do graphical processing power to such a point now where you can have this really high level of combat action on the screen. The fidelity can really, shine on today's systems. And, we're not constrained. Like, some of these people were thinking like, well, EverQuest was done that way because they were constrained by polygons and frame rates, right? That's the kind of thinking. But the more you sort of think about that, the more that sort of falls apart, because it's implying that a tab targeting game can't be fast, right?
Yeah.
And it can. Surely there are examples of Guild Wars 2, like I talked about. It's a hybrid. Final Fantasy 14 is a fast game, right? It's not a slow game, but it's a tab target game. It's hard to say that it's technical limitations when you think about it like that. So I tried to sort of come up with a different explanation, and I thought about it, and I think what it boils down to is it's a different way of accomplishing a task in the game, namely choosing your target. Sounds obvious, but it's a control scheme, and the control scheme has to fit the game's design. So, a lot of current MMOs are very much like you're fighting 4, 5, 6 enemies at a time, right? In a tab target using a tab target system, that's not really going to work too well, right? Like, you can't just be constantly like tabbing between enemies. I mean, if you have a small group, that's one thing, but when you're talking, like you mentioned Dynasty Warriors or like BDO, what if you had to tab through every enemy in that game? It wouldn't work too well. It'd be pretty cumbersome. I think, games have been designed with manual sort of mouse point targeting selection in mind. So they, when you get away from these games with bigger, less numerous sort of enemies that are more suited to a tab target system. So it's a scheme, it's fallen away in terms of encounter design. That's where I sort of land with this. So it's an interesting question though.
I'll take it to my grave that as of right now, the best encounters in any MMO are in WoW. So why is it not in an action RPG? Like, tell me how many people in an action, combat MMO, tell me about the greatest fights you've ever had. Because I'd like to hear how impactful they are. Like, where are the memories?
Exactly. Like, go and look at my my video for Guild Wars 2 on the Ranger, and a lot of the footage I used for that video is me taking on one of the bosses of the one of the expansions. I can't remember the name of it, but it was so forgettable, it was so forgettable. And it's
again, when when the whole game is that you can kill something without taking damage. If you play it right, you take a whole entire mechanic away, like damage. Like, I don't know. It's silly to me. Taking down the end boss of a game without getting hit. Like, what? Crazy,
right?
Yeah.
I'm so glad that Pantheon's a tab target game, because I think that I like that system better. And I've said before on the show, like, I like a slower paced game, and there's no question that, a tab target game can do fast combat, can do action combat, but it it's better suited for these strategic, more tactical battles. So yeah. So good one. Good discussion there. And that's it for this week's community discussions.
Here's the mail, it never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it gets here, I just yell, mail! We're getting sued.
All right. Everybody's favorite singing bumper for the rewind means that it's time for the mailbox. So let's start with one that was to me. And Derek, feel free to comment on the things I say here because it's going to get crazy. They say minus. It's from Sparrow. What is each race that's available for the rogue class? And what are the pros and cons, basically? What's making it difficult to pick one? Okay. So we're going to go through them. I'm going to get rid of some here quick. So the first one I'm going to look at is dwarf. So dwarves are, they just don't fit rogue to me. They can be one, but I don't know. They're clunky. I feel like they're always drunk. I feel like they're not very stealthy.
But I could see you being, I could see being a dwarf. They do beards really well. And,
yeah, I guess that'll be, they drink well and they have beards. That'd be pros. The cons are they're passives and everything else about them really doesn't fit. Blunt weapon increase, but immunity to disarm, extra hit points. Nah, they're out. Then after that will be elves. So the pros for them are none. And the cons are that they're elves.
You got nice ears. Hey, you got nice ears. What are you talking about?
The only thing I'll give them is they have the one group of them has the agility. Effectiveness of skills and abilities are modified by agility or increased.
The Ember Elves.
It's not enough to overcome the fact that they're elves, so they're out. Gnomes, I don't know. They have dodge. They're tiny, I guess, but they glow. How do you be stealth if you're like basically a light? No, doesn't work.
Yeah. That would be a problem.
Yeah, their abilities really don't match either. They're out. Next up would be
the only, if you were a gnome though, you'd be the only melee class of your entire race. All the other ones are casters. And
there's a reason for that. They shouldn't even be allowed to be rogues. I hope when they update it, they're not allowed to be rogues. Then you have, let's see here, you have the Scar. So they are really ugly. Rogues are supposed to be able to convince people of things. They're kind of that shady guy in the darkness, don't look at me, but look at me, right? Scar, no, they don't have the looks. That's definitely not good. And then they have they're faster if they're with other people. Rogues shouldn't be with other people. They should be by themselves. And then they have resistance to fear. Rogues aren't afraid. All right. So I don't know what that's about. So Scar out. So that leaves us with Darkmere. So one of the reasons that Darkmere is leading for me, as one of the leaders for me, is that they are able to breathe underwater, gives them that extra bit of exploration. They can both are more effective in stealth and can detect stealth than other classes. And they are able to be in anaerobic and pressure climates for natural acclimation. So I don't have to worry about drowning. I can stealth underwater. I can explore more of the world. It's really enticing to me.
Pretty tempting. Yeah.
Then there's humans who I have not fully rolled out. Now they get melee haste, which is kind of nice. So they do have shield mastery. That's awful. But they do get bonus effects from charisma. So again, kind of that, hey, I'm a rogue, listen to me, right? And they have bonus faction gain to neutral factions. And they get exploration experience, which is kind of neat. So that's some cool rogue stuff. They have, rogues, they're called the, what is it?
Faceless Affairs of Nations.
Faceless Affairs of Nations. Yeah. I keep forgetting that. I brought it up like it was the greatest thing. And you have to always remind me. So that whole gaining faction with neutral factions, weaving your way in and, kind of being manipulative. I like that. Exploring and getting experience is cool. The melee haste is cool. So humans are cool. They're probably third on my list.
Yeah, they check a lot of boxes for you. I got to tell you.
They do. And then finally you have halflings. Dagger increase, consumable increase, resistance to charm and mesmerize. You can't fool me. You can't trick me. And then they get bonus damage against wraiths. Now, wraiths can be sort of stealthy, I guess, right? They're ghosts. They can be hard to see. So if I can kill other things that are hard to see, that's good. And halflings are also badass looking, and they're little and crafty and tricky, and they're natural tricksters. So that's why they're leading the way. But I would say it would go halflings, close second Darkmere, then in third humans right now. So how's that?
That's pretty good. Why did I not remember that halflings have resistance to mez? That seems like something I should have known, but That's a pretty good, it's a pretty good feature, isn't it?
Right? Yeah. Can't fool me. Can't fool me.
It's pretty sweet. Well, the day will come when you will have to decide, and hopefully that day comes sooner rather than later. But someday you will have to decide.
Yeah, someday. Next up, so Sparrow, thank you for the question. Hopefully you guys, I'm curious, chat, if any rogues are out there, or if you had to make a rogue, which one of those appeals to you? And don't say elf. So next up here is Gloxy. Yep, and Gloxy said, we've heard Ranger aimed ability may not be specific to that class. Hey, we just talked about that. Mm-hmm. What other options can you think of, or would you like to see for aimed abilities from other classes? So what do you think, Derek?
Yeah, it's a good question. I had to look through all the classes and the skills to sort of find one that I thought might work. And actually in doing so, I kind of noticed something that we haven't really mentioned. But the thing about Silent Arrow is that it doesn't say it has to be manually aimed. It says it can be manually aimed for greater damage, right? So that's kind of interesting because we're just kind of assuming like, oh, you're just manually aim the skill automatically. And it doesn't read that way. It actually so what I did was I looked for other skills that you could have an option if you wanted to manually aim it, that it would enhance it somehow. The one that I found was pretty cool actually is the monk skill. It's called Flickering Flame Kata. And it reads like this. It says, perform a series of precision strikes, putting an enemy into a disoriented state and reducing their hate towards you. Put the target in a fatigued state. So what if you had the option to like if you just did it automatically, like not manually, it just did the first part. But then if you aimed it and you hit like the head, or something like that, then they went into this fatigued or disoriented state. Another sort of extra bonus for manually aiming at something like that. I think a monk ability would be pretty cool for that.
All right. I think for summoners, they have bladed missiles. That would be really cool if you could aim that. It's like just a swarm of bladed weapons and launch them at your enemy. It's physical and magic damage. So just imagine like Joppa said, you might be able to disarm a trap or something. Imagine just throwing a bunch of swords at a trap.
Yeah, totally. Well, there was one you did. You brought up one of the summoner abilities. Which one was it? The weaponize object or something like that, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And that was one where it's like you take an object in the environment and sort of use it as a thrown weapon or something like that. That sounded like pretty prime candidate for something like that.
Yeah, there was a wizard ability too that had something like you could charge it up to deal more damage. I can't remember what it was at this point.
Yeah, that's right. There is one like that. I'm trying to remember what it is now. Now I got to go to the class pages and start looking at all these classes again.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's it's the spear, Vayrol's spear or frozen spike. I think
it's that Vayrol's icy blade. Yeah,
like you can like deal damage, and the longer you cast it, it does more damage or something like that.
Yeah,
so that'd be cool to throw like that ice.
So many interesting little possibilities for the mechanics on these things.
Yep. All right. So next up we have JJ. This is another one of those run through the classes things that we got last week. I kind of like these. They're a little time consuming, but I do like them. We still have time. Sure. So JJ says, when it comes to Pantheon, classes are made to feel unique and with a purpose. What is a dream ability you would love to see for each class that we haven't been introduced to yet? Let's start at the top here, and you can go first, and then I'll go second. Cleric.
Okay. Cleric. Well, what's one that we haven't seen that we would love to have in this cleric? I don't know. Geez, I didn't prepare for this one as much as I didn't go through each of the ones and do like a thing. So you go first. I'll think about it. You might have something.
Okay, so cleric, I would like to see them like purge the undead, but turn them back to the living and have them fight with you.
Okay.
So like you're fighting a zombie and it reforms them back into a regular human, and for a short period of time they'll fight with you because you've purged the undeath off of them.
Nice. I always think of like clerics and the ability to summon a divine hammer. I think that's a D&D skill. So I like the idea of just a spiritual weapon sort of thing, right?
All right.
So I would go with that.
Dire Lord. I would say I'm going to steal it right from WoW, to be honest. Death Grip. And in WoW, the Death Knights had an ability where you just threw a hand out and you grabbed an enemy and just pulled it right to you. It was so sick. So awesome. It had taunt. You had a big one where you could throw it on one enemy and all the enemies around it would be stacked right on that enemy. Gorfine's Grasp, like those were cool abilities I'd love to see.
Nice. I don't know for the Dire Lord. I think just, I think their blood abilities are so cool. I love the idea of their splatter ability, and their blood is somehow like toxic and damaging to the player. So something building on that aspect would be pretty cool.
Okay. Druid. I think it'd be cool
one.
if they could transform.
Yeah, the trees were so popular in EQ. The trees standing around.
No, I just mean like turn into a bear or turn into like while the druid could shapeshift between all kinds of things. Like I'd like to see shapeshifting for the druid.
Yeah, well, Speed of the Black Wolf is a skill for the druid, and that's obviously an homage to EverQuest and Spirit of the Wolf. I think they need to up that to the next level though, and it's got to be like speed of the. I don't know what's faster than wolves. Something.
Cheetah.
The cheetah. I don't know. Wasn't that a skill in WoW or in EQ? Yeah. Cheetah speed or something?
I think, yeah. All right. Enchanter. I would like to see them be able to turn into like a coin on the ground, like they used to be able to in EQ.
Yeah, we're all out of ideas here. We're just
no, I just think it's great. There were people who literally would turn into a piece of platinum on the ground, and everyone would walk by clicking on them trying to pick it up. It was so good. Oh
yeah, I missed that. That was a good thing. I don't know for the enchanter. I don't know, something that like rips the mind out. Like I want to see graphically somebody's character's NPC's brain getting ripped out of their skull or something like that, like sucked out through their ear or something. I don't know.
Finish him.
That's right.
Monk. I'd like to see like some kind of like stone body form.
Nice. That's a good one. Yeah. Turn into like, well, especially for the archive.
Turn into an archive. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Where all monks, no matter what race you are, you become an archive.
Yeah.
That's right. The idea.
Yeah. And if you're an archive, you become a gnome. I don't know why, but that's
you turn into like a big rock, just a rock on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What would be a good ultimate monk ability that we haven't seen?
I have a feeling you're not going to have any hard time here with Ranger.
What's that?
I feel like you're not going to have a hard time with Ranger, but you're struggling with these other classes.
I actually don't, because I think tracking for Ranger is just my go-to. I love tracking so much, and I can't get past it being the ultimate skill. If I had to come up with one for Ranger, I would say like enhanced tracking, where I could see like the mob's hit points and
cheating.
Like. No, it's not cheating.
Derek's totally cheating, guys. He just skipped Monk and Paladin to talk about the Ranger. Totally cheating.
Yeah, well, you baited me, so I. All
right, I'm giving you Monk off. All the Monk fans are going to be mad at you, but I'm giving you off Paladin.
Paladin. What's a good Paladin one? I don't know, man.
I'd like in Diablo, they have the beam from the sky that can come down.
Yeah,
like from the Crusader. I think that'd be sweet for the Paladin.
That'd be pretty sweet. Like something that makes their armor shine. Just a great shining armor, I don't know.
That's their ability. Shine.
Yeah. Shine on
it
you, crazy diamond.
Anything.
That's what I want.
It doesn't do anything, but you shine.
That's right. Well, it's like in BDO, your abs, remember, you got the glisten effect going on.
I did. Pretty sure it adds to my DPS. Okay, now you can talk about your Ranger ability.
Well, I'm just going to say, again, I want tracking to show me everything I can know about the mob. I want tracking to show me, I want to con them from tracking. So I don't know.
Okay. For me, how about an ability where you can shoot arrow with a rope on it?
That'd be pretty cool.
Almost like Batman, like the Batarang. Like,
well, what if it was like a Ranger Rogue specific combo skill that we had?
Don't you dare. Oh, yeah. What? I give you a rope and then you can shoot it with your arrow?
No, you like sit on my shoulders and do your rope, and I just put my bow back and it shoots you and the rope, or maybe just the rope. I don't know, whatever.
Okay. All right. Well, that's fine. As long as it sticks to the wall and I'm ahead of all you guys for the loot, I'll be all right. For Rogue, oh boy, do I want to hear this from you.
Which one? The Rogue?
Rogue.
I don't know, man.
I want abilities that can, if crit, put me back into stealth.
Yeah.
I just I want to go in and out of stealth more, like combat wise.
Right. That makes sense. Good Rogue, ultimate Rogue ability. I think pickpocket is just such an awesome skill. I love pickpocket, in other RPGs. I do it a lot in Octopath Traveler, which I was playing a little while ago. I started you get to choose which character type you start with, and I picked the Rogue. And being able to pickpocket from NPCs early in that game was such a huge advantage. I love pickpocketing.
All right. Shaman.
Shaman, the time thing in Pantheon is pretty sweet, man. I don't know if you can get better than like the Walk the Ages that they do, where it's like they mark a spot and can come back to it. Like that is amazing. That's a great skill.
We're starting to learn why you're not a class designer, Theric.
You're just figuring this out now?
Just figuring it out. Not a class designer. So Shaman for me, I would like to see them physically bond with their pet for a short period of time. So you have this bear cub or whatever, this bear, then you put them both together and the shaman and bear become one and you're like this truck for a little bit. Be kind of cool. A couple more, Theric. You're almost through. Summoner.
Summoner. Summon a bear. I want to summon bear.
You technically might be able to. You get to summon random animals or enemies from around the world. Summoner, summon ale.
Summon ale. There you go.
Summon ale.
Like it.
Yeah. Warrior.
Ultimate warrior ability.
Dude, you've played so many regular RPGs with classes and abilities.
I know. I like to prepare ahead of time. I didn't prepare ahead of time on this way of doing this question, so I'm just sort of doing it off the cuff. But like, warriors just need big swords. Just like summon huge sword. You know,
how about
that's the
dual wield two-handers.
Yeah. There you go.
You know what I want? Final Fantasy Tactics warriors could break items. I would love a break armor, like break headpiece, like lower their AC if you could successfully break their items. I think that's a
good
cool.
one. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's a good one.
Finally, wizard.
Ultimate wizard skill. The nuke. Remember in BDO Drax nuke? How that
the
was?
Meteor
that was
shower.
Sweet.
Okay.
Meteor shower. Yep.
You know what I've always really liked with wizards is frost fire bolts.
Okay.
I don't think that they have that listed right now for Pantheon, like having the frost fire bolt. It's like the combo fire ice bolt. I like that.
Right. Just because of how they look or just because of that?
Everything. It's bigger. It's double. It's two colors. It's swirly. It's cool. Two of your abilities at once. Yeah.
Extra
All
swirly.
Right. All right, everybody. We're going to wrap it up with one more question here. It's from Moobird. He says, in regards to perception giving a sense of narration, what are your thoughts on enemies or effects that could alter your narrator as a unique method of environment versus player? Like vapors dulling your senses and maybe even leading you in the wrong direction? Or would that just be needless misguidance to the system? I'm thinking of implementing a similar effect in my own tabletop campaigns. I wanted to offer the suggestion to the devs, but also gauge the effect before I submit to my players. So what would you think of that?
It's a pretty cool idea. I like what he's trying to do with his tabletop campaign. Perception in real life is constantly affected by unseen things. We don't always get perfect information. So what I would do with his idea, though, is instead of like misleading information, I would just make it like in Pantheon, if your perception was affected, you get like broken language or like blurred, a blurred sort of effect of words like that. And if we've seen that with like the atmosphere effects, how they can sort of affect the screen and what you see. Okay. I'd like to see something like that. You have to fill in the blanks. Maybe you don't have it right. There's actually lore with the Dragon Accord that, whenever you try to read it, it's in it's written in the dragon language, and maybe that was something that you had partial knowledge of. So stuff like that's pretty cool. I like it. It's a good idea. What about you?
Yeah, I think it could be neat. The only problem is with perception, I don't believe you can go back and re-get the message. So so if you were in a state and the message was all messed up, like you wouldn't be able to go back like once you've cleaned your state to hear it again, I don't think. Unless there was a way to do that, that would be cool. So I'm kind of hit or miss on that. If I could clear my mind and go back and get the real message, then cool. If I couldn't, I wouldn't love that.
Yeah. Yeah. You wouldn't want to do it you wouldn't want to get imperfect information and be stuck with it. Right. So
yeah. Yep. All right, everybody. So that's it for today's episode of The Rewind. Thank you guys for hanging out with us for another Sunday morning, afternoon, noonish, whatever it is, wherever you're at. We enjoy every moment of this with all of you. I hope that it's giving you a little bit of thought, some things coming on. What abilities do you think a class should be really cool to have? And what other abilities do you think should be maybe aimed if they're going to do more of that, like we've heard? So, this is obviously everything we do in these is to get more conversation from you, hear your thoughts. So please share. And with that, Theric, that's it for another episode.
See you next week, everyone.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Pantheon Plus Rewind. Be sure to follow Minus and all Pantheon Plus related content on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube under the name Pantheon Plus. Also, be sure to follow Theric at Pantheon Theric on Twitter. Keep up to date on all Pantheon Rise of the Fallen information on www.pantheon.plus, the definitive source for all media of Pantheon. Until next time.